Welcome to a video presentation of understanding of non-functional requirements. As you may be aware, non-functional requirements are becoming more and more crucial as applications scale beyond organizational boundaries with the usage of internet and many advanced technologies. NFRs are basically known as quality attributes. So basically the attributes which are not operated by an user but still very essential to the success of a software product. So basically NFRs indicate how capable the system is to handle certain scenario than what the system really does. So for example, qualities of application with respect to performance, usability, security, portability, or the conditions or the compatibility. So let us take a look at all the NFRs that is of interest to a software development community. Here we have listed the NFRs in the order of their alphabetical nature, not necessarily with respect to the importance of the attribute. What we advise you is to take a look at these NFRs and make a small Excel where you actually can say for example you can have the list of the NFRs there and whether it is applicable in your project context or not, and whether the same requirement has been listed or not. So this is included as part of our software requirements template. So we will come back to the presentation. The first NFR is accessibility. Accessibility basically points to the fact that whether the application needs to be accessible to people with special needs. So for example, would you like your application to be used by blind people or so, or color blind people or so, and in that case your accessibility requirements for the software will change. Many of the government applications need to have a serious look at accessibility, as government has a mandate to treat all its citizens equally and provide features which can be used by people with handicap or a special need. The next one is audit and control, in which basically the requirements are with respect to tracing the changes to the records. So for example, who created the record, when was it created, who all modified the record. That is how the audit and control requirements are specified. Availability requirements are fairly simple in terms of how available the application needs to be. So for example, if you are operating an e-commerce website, the availability requirements are higher than if you are just a corporate presentation website. Backup requirements again can be from business, indicating how often the application data should be backed up. Certification requirements comes from the application if it is to be used for a particular purpose. So for example, if it is intended to be used by payment card industry, then it must be certified against PCI DSS compliance. Compliance requirements can come from customer or government or your own organization. Deployment requirements are basically how the application needs to be deployed, whether it will be deployed on the web, if it is to be how the upgradation to the application needs to happen. Disaster recovery requirements are with respect to what is the need for disaster recovery of the application. How much data can you afford to lose or you cannot afford to lose. Say for example, a banking application cannot afford to lose even a second of data, because that can create a huge financial trouble for the organization. Documentation requirements again is dictated by the domain and application and customer. So for example, applications which are in healthcare domain or aviation domain require thorough documentation compared to projects which follow an agile or scrum methodology. There can be need for indicating emotional factor for an application, whether the application needs to be fun and observing. I remember very clearly we had developed an interface for a client which was plain vanilla HTML, but the client said no, we want it on Flash so that our employees would be interested to visit the website. So we redesigned the application on Flash, and till today the client folks really appreciate it, and they come back and tell this is one of the very successful projects that they have done in house. Escrow is an interesting requirement. Basically, this requirement is to ensure that the source code of an application is available to the customer in case the parent business goes closes down for some reason. So, for example, we Adaptive provide a software product called GRC Perfect, and some of our clients would like to have an escrow so that in case something happens to Adaptive, they still will have an access to the source code. In escrow, basically what organizations do is there are escrow providers where the source code is kept in safe. And on certain circumstances, the client can have access to the source code. Extensibility, modifiability requirements are basically depending on the application maturity and the perception of business users to see whether the requirements are likely to be modified in future, and if it is so, how the application needs to be designed. The more extensible you make an application, the application architecture of course becomes a little more complex, and also the development time may increase. The next set of our failure management, which is basically if the application fails, how the application is going to be managed, or obviously any hardware device or software device can fail due to any reason, and what is the mechanism to handle that. Internationalization basically indicates the fact that if you are wishing to use the application across the globe, the number formats, the date formats, the decimal formats all change across the globe, and this application should be able to handle it. Interoperability indicates whether the application can be used on multiple platforms. Legal and licensing issues are basically with respect to if the application may infringe on somebody's patent. Localization refers to the ability to be used in a particular country. So, for example, the tax rules in US will be very different from the tax rules in France or the tax rules in India. Maintainability points to the fact that how easy it is to maintain and manage the application. Network topology basically indicates what kind of network architecture is being projected for the application, because many times network topology can have a serious impact on the performance of the application. Whether the product is planning to use any open source tools or open source aspects, or it is to be developed as an open source application. Performance requirements are pretty much known to most developers. This is basically the response time. Platform compatibility, again, as we said, the ability to run on multiple platforms, be it hardware, software, operating system, or databases. Portability is again same, ability to port from one system to another. Price requirements will come from business users. Privacy is basically related to keeping sensitive data safe in a system. Say, for example, a person's health information is always considered a very private data and should not be exposed to anybody who is not authorized to do so. There can be many quality related requirements in terms of bug density or fault removal efficiency. Recovery requirements could be mean time to recover. That means if an application fails, within what time the application needs to be recovered. Reliability is again basically how reliable the application needs to be. So, for example, if you are designing an air traffic control system, the reliability has to be extremely high, because if the system fails, it obviously creates trouble. Then the reporting requirements for the application. Resilience is again ability of the application to withstand issues. So, for example, if your application is exposed to internet, it may be attacked by hackers. So, can it actually handle such situation? There can be resource constraints which are applicable, like the processor, memory, disk space, power consumption, because more and more applications are running on mobile devices where the resource constraint is a real critical aspect. Then the requirements are with respect to reusability. That means how much part of the application would you like to be reused for future development. Robustness again indicates to the fact that whether the application can handle exception behavior properly. Safety aspects, if there is anything applicable to it. Scalability basically pertains to the fact that how many users it can handle without significant deterioration in performance. Security requirements are basically with respect to the transaction encryption, data encryption, data transfer encryption, all that can pertain to security. If the organization has a set of tools or standards, it may like it to be compatible to them. Stability of the application is basically the application to be running up and running without going down. Testability requirements are with respect to whether the application is developed in such a way that it can be tested easily. And usability is a very common requirement for applications, because if you have a large untrained user base, the application should be easy to use for most of the folks. So this is a brief description on the NFRs, which one business analyst may come across during his analysis of any software requirements template.